You're watching the chapter number 22 of the Blender Materials Textures and Nodes course, Creating Final Animation. In this chapter, we'll focus on creating two basic animations in the arcade scene that we started creating in the chapter number 1 of this course. And if you're someone who is absolutely new to this course, then do watch the previous 21 chapters by using the link of the playlist given in the pinned comment. So we are back in the scene where in the last chapter, we made some final adjustments like the lighting setup, adding some simple chairs, changing some materials, and rendering an image of the scene. And in this particular chapter, let's work on creating two simple animations by using camera tracking and other techniques. So right now we are in the solid mode. So for the first animation, my basic idea is to place the camera in such a position that it gets the view of only some specific part of the gaming machine, and then the camera will begin to move in the y-axis, and after that, when it reaches the end, it will zoom out and present the entire arcade scene. So to create this animation, we first need to change this window from the shader editor to timeline. After this, click on this lock button to activate the lock camera to view. Now let's zoom in and change the camera view by using the middle mouse button and the combination of control and the middle mouse button, or the shift key and the middle mouse button. So for the frame number 1, we'll set the camera in this particular position where it will show the opposite game controls for these two gaming machines. Now to create the animation, we first need to insert the keyframes for the camera's position at different frames. So for this, go to the scene collection, then select the camera, and to insert the keyframe, press I, and here we have the keyframe inserted at the frame number 1. Now I'll take this pointer to around frame number 40, and with the camera selected, we'll move it in the y-axis like this. So let's move it in this direction until we reach the last gaming machine. In fact, for the frame number 40, let's keep the camera's position to somewhere over here. So I'll left click and press I to insert another keyframe. Now let's take the pointer back to the frame number 1, and if I press the spacebar to play the animation, then here we have a basic animation created where the camera moved in the y-axis. After this, I'll take the pointer around frame number 55 or 60, and then we'll move this back in the opposite direction. Then left click, press I to insert another keyframe, then take the pointer to around frame number 90 or frame number 100, and this will be the last frame for the animation, where we'll have the entire scene being displayed in the animation. As a result, with the pointer at around frame number 100, I'll simply zoom out, and after that, I'll adjust the camera view according to the complete scene. Let's change the view a little bit more until we have the best position of camera for capturing the entire scene perfectly. You can also switch to the rendered preview mode in order to see the scene in a better way. Now I think that this position of the camera is looking perfect for the frame number 98. So press I to insert a keyframe, and right now let's go to the material preview mode so that I can play the animation smoothly without any lag. So let's take the pointer to the frame number 1 and press the spacebar to play the animation. And now this is how we created a very basic animation with only the movement of camera in the scene. And so now we should also convert the animation that we created into a video format by rendering it to save it in our PC. So to do this thing, let's first disable the lock camera to view so that we don't make any changes by accidentally changing the view. Then to render the animation, go to the output properties, and in the frame range, we have the frames starting from the frame number 1 till the frame number 250. However, the total length of an animation is somewhere around 100 frames only. So instead of having 250 frames, let's reduce this to something like 120, or you can also set this to exact 100 frames. After this, to choose the location where you'll save the file, you can use the output path option by clicking on this folder icon. It will ask you to choose that particular location where you want to save the required animation. So suppose I choose a particular location, and here I type animation 1, then the video that we create will get saved with the name animation 1 at this particular location. So click on accept, and after this, change the file format from PNG to this FFmpeg video format. Then go to the render properties and do ensure to select the Cycles render engine. Then in the maximum samples, you can keep it to something like 128, and in fact the samples of around 50 will even work fine in most of the cases. Then I'll disable denoisy for now to get a realistic animation with some noise added to it. And after this, we are now ready to render the animation. So you simply need to click on the render button and select render animation. Then this window will appear where the animation is being rendered frame by frame. And once it renders all the frames, you can close this window and then check that particular location where you decided to save this animated video. And yes, you can also take a look at this animation that I created after making a few adjustments in the lighting effects and some compositing effects. And after this, let's now work on creating one more animation of this scene where we'll have the color of this text changing from one color to the other, and initially we'll have the camera zoomed into this particular text and then it will zoom out in order to show the complete arcade scene. But before that, I'll also delete all the keyframes that I've added here for the previous animation. So press A to select all in the timeline editor, press X and select delete keyframes. Now I'll take the pointer back to the frame number 1, and to create the animation of the changing colors of this text, I'll first change this window from timeline to the shader editor. Let's also expand this window like this. And if you remember, while discussing about the separate and combine XYZ nodes in the chapter number 15, I told you that if I try to change the value of Y parameter in the combine XYZ node, then we'll notice a change of color between red and green, which are the two colors that are selected in the color ramp node. So basically, at the frame number 1, we'll set the color as red by inserting a keyframe for this particular value of the Y parameter, and then after moving some frames, we'll show a change in color to the green color by inserting another keyframe for this value of the Y parameter. So to do this thing, I'll first change this value to positive 6, which is giving us the red color. So right now, I've adjusted the value of this parameter to 9.5, and with my cursor over this particular parameter, if I press I, then you will notice that it turns yellow in color, and this will represent that we now have a keyframe inserted at the selected frame for this particular value of the parameter. Let's also view this in the timeline editor. So for this, I'll take my pointer at the bottom of this window, then this double-headed arrow will appear. So right click and select horizontal split. Then I'll bring this line slightly above and change this window at the bottom to the timeline. Now I'll select the combine XYZ node, and after this you will notice that here we have a keyframe inserted at the frame number 1. Now I'll take the pointer to around frame number 40 and I'll change the value of Y to something in negative so that we get the green color. After this, with the cursor again over this parameter, I'll press I to insert a keyframe, and now it's the time to view the animation. So I'll take the pointer to the frame number 1 and press the space bar. And here we notice a change in color from red to green. If you want this transition to be slower, then you simply need to select this keyframe and move it to some other frame. For example, if I place it at around frame number 80 or frame number 90, then in that case, the animation showing the change in color from red to green will be slightly slower. After this, I'll again take the pointer to around frame number 100 or 105 and then select the camera in the scene collection. Now we already have this final position of the camera ready in the scene from where we can clearly see the entire arcade scene. But if you want to make any adjustments, then click on this lock button and make the adjustments accordingly. But for now, I think that this view looks almost perfect for rendering the animation. As a result, with the camera selected in the scene collection, I'll press I to insert a keyframe at the frame number 105. Then I'll take the pointer to the frame number 1, click on this lock icon and we'll zoom the camera into the text. Let's adjust the camera view properly so that we properly zoom into the text. Let's zoom in even more, and after this, press I to insert the keyframe. Now if I press the space bar to play the animation, then here we have a basic animation where the camera is showing the zoomed out view and we also see a color change in the text. Now before moving forward, I'll disable the lock camera to view, and for this particular animation, I will hide all these chairs that we are having in the scene. And yes, this is only my personal choice to hide these chairs in the animation. If you want, you can keep them here in the scene and directly render the animation. But for now, I will select all these objects that are here for the seats or the chairs. Let's select the ones on this side with the shift key holded, and after this, let's also select the ones on the opposite side. So with the shift key holded, let's select all of them like this, and after that, we also need to select all these cylinders present at the bottom. So I'll select all of them, and now we have to hide, or basically remove all these chairs from the scene. So go to the scene collection, let's scroll down, and here we have all the objects selected in the scene. So to hide them from the 3D viewport, I can directly press H. However, they will still be visible in the final animation that we create until we disable these camera icons for the selected objects. And instead of left clicking for each of these individually, you can simply hold the left mouse button and drag the cursor like this. This will disable the camera icon for all these objects. After this, we are now ready to create the rendered animation. So for this, let's go to the render properties and I'll change the frame ending to around 120 or 125. Then in the file format, I'll again select the FFmpeg video format, and to change the output path, click on this folder icon and select that particular folder where you want to save the animation video. Then I'll type the name of the video, which is animation 2, and press enter to confirm. After this, in the render properties, do ensure to select the cycles render engine, and also in the maximum samples of render, I'll change this to 128 and also disable the denoisy option. And after this, we are now ready to render the final animation. So click on render and select render animation. Then this window will open where we have the frame number 1 being rendered, and once all the frames of this animation are completely rendered, you can open the folder that you chose in the output path to save the animation video. And you can also take a look at this animation that I have created after making some minor adjustments in the lighting setup and some compositing effects And finally, this brings us not only to the end of this chapter, but also to the end of this course. Throughout this course, we learnt about a variety of different concepts related to the materials, textures and nodes, and in total, we have covered over 45 different shaders in the different chapters of this course. Then in today's chapter, we even created two very basic animations of this retro gaming arcade scene. But in order to bring a final end to this course, I will also release a conclusion video in order to conclude this complete course. So don't forget to subscribe to our channel, press that notification bell so that you can get timely updates about the upcoming chapters. Thank you for watching and we'll see you in the next one.